something was on my mind, and there was a story that kind of came out that was it just really shows exactly what it is that I'm kind of talking about. And racism is something white leftists, though not exclusively, because leftists of all colors, well, especially black leftists, use it as a means to really get what it is that they want. And because y'all let them do it, right? You let various institutions do it. You let let's say celebrities, musicians, basically get rewarded for pulling that card, top to bottom, actors, actresses, all that. Well, now people can't stop talking about it. And it's the thing that people lean on when they want something, okay? So there can be a thing that has absolutely nothing to do with racism and what they do. What do they do? It's a rhetorical question. I ask it for you. Well, if I want to get people to support a cause, what I'll do is pull that card. It's not always racism. Sometimes homophobia, transphobia, and all those different things. And then I can get you to these guys do Stretch Armstrong, Mr. Fantastic levels of reaching, let's say, to try to get something that they want by connecting it as loosely as they possibly can, because they have to do that, right? Connecting that to some form of racism. One of the examples of this is climate. Now, what the hell does climate got to do with racism? Well, that's how they love to do, like the disenfranchised. They'll try to say that, well, because of those groups, because they don't have money, are the most impacted. Well, it's more racism. But Jane Fonda, who was absolutely batshit, this is what she had to say, right? And this was in a recent interview. It says everything's connected. This is what they said. Well, you can take anything: sexism, racism, misogyny, homophobia, really the things I just named. Whatever war, and if you really get into it and study and learn about it, the history of it, everything's connected. There'd be no climate crisis if it wasn't for racism. Where would they put the poison and the pollution? They're not going to put it in Bel Air. They've got to find some place where poor people or indigenous people are and people of color are living. It's the disproportion, right? Because everything's supposed to be equal and according to the population. Hell, even when that happens, it's always disproportionate. And that's how they pull the card. Put it there. They can't fight back, and that's why a big part of the climate. Do they think just black people and everybody else is just other than whites or just poor? The climate movement now has to do with climate justice. Let's listen to it. I guess it was on Kelly Clarkson's show. A bunch of old white women talking about it. Let's listen in on it.
Is that sense of responsibility?
Oh, don't.
Tad, or do you feel like you have that because you're in the spotlight? You have the opportunity.
For me, it was learning about the Vietnam War. And when I really understood what that was about, I couldn't do anything except try to join the movement to stop it.
And that was where it started, because you're pretty active even after that.
Well, you can take anything: sexism, racism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever, the war. And if you really get into it and study it and learn about it and the history of it and everything's connected. There'd be no climate crisis if it wasn't for racism.
How do you get to that? Tell me.
Where would they put the Where would they put the poison and the pollution? They're not going to put it in Bel Air. They've got to find some place where poor people or indigenous people or people of color are living. Put it there. They can't fight back.
But what does that have to do with the actual logic of the crisis itself? You're saying that in the result of the crisis, that's what's going to happen. But that's not the crisis itself, right? It's not a function of, let's say, I don't know, the whatever climate crap is going on and it's changing, because climate, I guess, is never supposed to do that. It's changing. Has to be rooted in racism. But this is what they do. It's a reach, obviously. She's just kind of flailing, just trying to find a way that she can connect it to racism. But this is what happened. Y'all fools allowed these fools to weaponize it. especially white leftists, weaponize. It's an easy thing, right? Just call and claim something is racist, and then you get people to support it. Because, right, you don't want to be racist, right? Of course, support whatever climate bullcrap, and that's what it's about, right? It's about whatever. It's usually, hey, the state needs to do more, which means they need to steal from people more, run their lives more, make it illegal for them to do certain things, all that type of stuff in order to fight the climate, right? And if you don't support that, well, you're racist. Is kind of the line of thinking, because it's rooted in racism, right? And if we continue to allow the climate to do whatever it's going to do, well, who's going to be disproportionately impacted? It's going to be the black people and the other POCs, as they like to call folks, because apparently, basically, everybody that's not white thinks the exact damn same. These people are crazy. But Jay Fonda, I mean, obviously, she's been crazy as hell forever. But it's the idea. That's not what she's doing. Isn't necessarily new. Of course it's not. And all of her colleagues, right, actors, they do that stuff all the time. This is why really the racism stuff ain't gonna go away. It's not that I think you can just rid the world of people thinking a certain kind of way about folks because they are a certain skin tone or come from ethnic background or race or whatever, right? You're maybe not gonna rid the world of it, right? But it exists in the capacity that it exists. And even though it seemed like definitely like in the 90s in America's case, you know, it peaked, right? And then it started going backwards, right? Like, you know, you think that you come from slavery and all that and like the discrimination and like the state-induced discrimination, Jim Crow. You think you'd have that, and then it would be, all right, as people have accepted publicly and the state got out the way, people started to understand this is a silly thing to be emphasizing. Right. And doing wrong things to people because of the way of the race. You think it would get better. And it did for a while. And somehow culturally, I don't know when it happened. Recently, post-90s, it just went the opposite way. Well, it's because of folks like this. They can't get enough of it. They need it. You got to understand, when this activism stuff goes away, they have nothing. These guys are boring, weird people. And in order to make themselves feel a lot more important than what they actually are as these freedom fighters and people that want to do good, well, they need activism. This is why it's such a tool of the leftists, because it allows them to put forth whatever ideas, and it's not even convinced. Ultimately, it'll come down to force and acts of aggression by utilizing the state to convince you to accept it as something that's righteous and must happen. Why? Because, well, you don't want to be a racist because Clouds are racist or something. I don't know. Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Rippaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Rippaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Rippaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.